I have practically been a lifelong Turtles fan, originally indoctrinated by my eldest bro, whose Turtles saucer I used to rocket down snowy slopes once upon a time when I was the whipperest of snappers. Since then, I've been quite the frequent consumer of various manners and mediums of Turtles media. I've simply always been drawn to this wacky, wild concept, as well as the vastly tonally different depictions that have been presented throughout the last nearly 40 years. Throughout my childhood, my favorite unironic piece of Turtles material was the first live-action flick, released 6 years prior to my existence. I certainly played with my fair share of Turtles toys from the late 80s and early 90s, belonging to my older cousin. Definitely dipped my toe into the Turtles NES pool as well, back in the day. I've been quite the consumer of Nintendo Switch-based Turtle games over the past few years, Shredder's Revenge being one of my most frequently played video games in general. All the while, I can't count the number of nights I've delved down the obscurest of Ninja Turtles rabbit holes. I can promise you I will be watching the infamous holiday special next Christmas season, which I've watched on many occasions, but never at the technically appropriate time of the year for some reason. And before this coming spring is through, I will have not only viewed, but sung along with the Beautifully Bizarre Coming Out of Our Shells tour. For most of my life, I had been living off of nostalgic Turtles shit. Then 2023 happened, the release year for the project that would instantly and unequivocally top the 1990 film in my personal list of favorite specific projects within this particular franchise. This flick lit an amphibious flame under my cracker ass and sent me down a heavily turtle-populated path, and I will be discussing essentially everything Turtles TV related at some point in the near future on this very channel, so keep your eyes peeled. I loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I waltzed out of the cinema alongside a pair of my best pals after having first viewed this funny, extremely cool, stylized, heartfelt, imaginative blast, which I've reviewed on this channel, wanting more, which is really the ideal result a franchise filmmaker wants when it comes to a given moviegoer's mindset. Not only did I eventually receive word of a cinematic sequel, but also a streaming sequel series. I had always planned on giving this 12-episode season a watch, but I admittedly didn't have the rather high expectations for it that I continue to have for Mutant Mayhem 2. Although much of the movie voice cast would return, the animation style would be completely different from its cinematic predecessor, which was particularly brilliant and unique. But as I try to do with any piece of media, when I initially sat down to view episode 101, I left any sort of apprehension at the door. And although I understand that this animation alteration was surely based in budgetary reasoning, the creative team went down the perfect path to assure that this would not even remotely be an issue for fans of the flick. Not only is this more so traditional when compared to said 23 flick in regard to the style, the animators are sure to include visual detail, while the action is fun and energetic. Even more credence is given to this more so drawn-looking animation, as our premiere chapter of Tales has this framework of Leo writing up a comic book based on he and his brother's adventures. It feels natural, sensible. I dig the very clear two-act structure, Act 1 encapsulating episodes 1 through 6, Act 2 showcasing 7 through 12, Act 1 as a whole, in which the Turtles go up against Bishop and her army of lethal mechazoids, is ever so slightly superior in my opinion, but Act 2, in which the Turtles take on Goldfin and his small band of mutants, is also a ton of fun, and it really goes out on an action-packed high note. One of my absolute favorite components is the non-linear narrative at play, as each of the first 4 episodes feature the story of an individual turtle, all the adventures chronologically taking place simultaneously. Then in episode 6, following the villain-centric 5th episode, all of our characters' solo stories converge. Our team regroups utilizing the knowledge that they gained through their respective solo affairs. I dig Bishop as an antagonist. Her figure resides amongst my rather large collection of Turtles memorabilia. She's not only given depth, but her past is heavily tied into the Mutant Mayhem film, which makes this universe even more so cohesive. The same is generally the case for our group of Act 2 villains, a crew of mutated sea life, voiced by stars such as bloody Timothy Oliphant and Danny Trejo. And while the first act consists largely of solo turtle missions, Act 2 does something similar, but with a slight twist, as each hero is paired with a given mutant introduced in the feature film. Thankfully, our Turtle Quartet's voice actors, alongside the wonderful Iowa Debris' April, who teams up with Splinter in episode 109, return for this episodic follow-up. While I kind of just assumed that Mr. Chan wouldn't reprise his role here, which was definitively one of the multiple great Splinter iterations, alongside the one from the 1990 live-action movie, which he didn't, though the decision to have the Ratman speak vermin for the sake of his partner, Scumbug, was an intelligent and humorous reasoning for the vocal absence of the legend. Raph speaking like Batman in other instances to give voice to Splinter was cute too, while the character is far less prevalent in general in the second season, which was the way to go in my opinion by the time the sophomore, seemingly final batch of Tales episodes came around, given the Chanless circumstances. The 8 weeks preceding the second season's release were a bit of an unexpected TMNT roller coaster. What feels like many moons ago at this point, it was announced that Tales could potentially air for 4 seasons. Then, I don't have my personal calendar before me, but maybe 6-7 weeks following, practically right before Season 2's release, it was announced that due to a Paramount strategy shift, the second season of Tales would be its last. This was a blow, as not only do I love this franchise, I particularly dig this iteration. We're still going to receive the Mutant Mayhem theatrical sequel, but although I digress, I wish there was a bit more brand stability here, I suppose. Nonetheless, I went into this 12-episode season with piqued interest, perhaps subconsciously more so because of the abrupt and early series cancellation, though my fingers are absolutely crossed that this series could continue elsewhere. I mentioned my adoration of the Season 1 story structure, primarily in Act 1 of 2, while I appreciate the fact that Season 2 takes a slightly different but interesting approach. It consists of a quartet of acts, each one focused on a different turtle. In this instance, episodes 1 through 3 focus on Raph, 4 through 6 focus on Donnie, 7 through 9 center on Leo, whilst 10 through 12 comprise the Mikey episodes. This was a nice small switch up, these 3-episode character arcs. From day uno, Raphael has been my favorite of the Turtles, so it was fun to commence Season 2 with a trio of action-centric pieces, which not only featured the Purple Dragons, but also, via a sort of brainwashing, Bebop and Rocksteady in a more antagonistic role, to which longtime fans are accustomed. Donnie's chapter brings us a trio of returning characters to the franchise that were certainly fun. I just wish we could have gotten more of them. I'm referring to 3 characters that appeared in the second live-action flick, namely Toka, Razar, and Dr. Jordan Perry, voiced respectively by the varied trio of movie and TV stars, Peter Stormare, Ralph Ineson, and Kieran Culkin. Act 3 of 4 is my personal favorite from this second season, the Night Ninja arc. It is very Batman-esque, which is just fucking aces for me. And it features one of the more memorable antagonists in Fred Armisen's Scratch. Now, given the fact that this is, sadly, the show's final season, it is fitting that we kind of come full circle in the opposition department. Roderick Underwood Sr. is, in a way, ever present through this series, even though he technically only physically appears on a couple occasions. The father of recurring character Rod was the man who funded Bishop's Mechazoid project in Season 1, whilst he becomes the show's final foe in the last quarter of said show, which is interestingly a bit of an Underwood family affair, in the form of the Big Muck, after having consumed a sewage-infused mutagen. I thoroughly enjoyed this particular funny, pretty consistently thrilling, obviously quick and concise TMNT iteration. I continue to anticipate the Mutant Mayhem cinematic sequel greatly, all the while, as I stated earlier, nervously, I'll keep my fingers crossed that perhaps via an alternate service, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles could live on, maybe?